Yeah, man, this is amazing. Some of the things that I'm learning right now, I just wish, I want to get on and start implementing these things right away. So again, tremendous job, guys. So at the end, I just wanted to kind of quickly do 3 slides. That's all I have. But my experience is actually a little bit different. I do stuff on Azure because a lot of our code is in .NET C Sharp, although it does run on Linux on Azure. But as I also run another software development company called Hypertrend. So I played with AWS and a lot of our clients are on AWS. And I get to kind of see the best of both worlds almost on a daily basis. So let me take a step back. I run an event ticketing company where things actually are in spikes. When an event goes live on sale, you see massive amount of traffic, and after the event is sold out, you pretty much don't see much except administrative traffic for reports and order management and things of that nature. And so when I was starting out, obviously my first step was, hey, I want to do Kubernetes, and I want to do Terraform, and I want to do all these CI/CD management things, and I wanted to deploy things in Docker, and I really got to a point where I was like, all of this is great if I had the money for it. Right now, I don't have the money for it, nor do I have any in-house expertise that can help me get in the right direction. This is what Microsoft's kind of infrastructure is for AKS, which is the equivalent of EKS that we just mentioned. They have their own Azure Kubernetes service, and you have your IDE on the very top, and obviously you put it in a dev cluster, and then you have your container registries. You have your almost the same thing. You put it in your GitHub, you do your pipelines, you have your Terraform scripts and everything, the policies, the logging. This is out of the box. Again, it's available in Microsoft Azure. But again, the biggest challenge for me was, how do I do this when I have a team of 4 developers and we don't have the kind of funding to manage something like that, nor do we have the in-house expertise to manage something like that. So at that point, what we decided was, okay, we got to look for something that allows us to have a fully managed option where we don't have to worry about learning something. We don't have to worry about the orchestration. We don't have to worry about rollout management, backups, and all of that fun stuff. And we still want the control, as in we want to define how many instances we want to provision. We want to define how many replicas we want to provision if it is a stateful service that we're deploying. And so we started looking into options, and we found this technology called Azure Service Fabric by Microsoft. And we found that Microsoft internally was using Azure Service Fabric to run Bing, which obviously gets a lot of traffic, for their own SQL Server, RDS, which obviously is pretty large. And essentially, it was completely out of the box. And we had people like Alaska Airlines talking about it. We have BMW, Honeywell, Schneider Electric. A lot of these people were using the Azure Service Fabric. And so I started looking into it. And so the core value propositions of Azure Service Fabric really spoke to me. It says you can simplify your microservices deployment and entire lifecycle management. You can obviously reliably scale and orchestrate containers and microservices. So the beauty of this is I don't necessarily need to have everything on a Docker container if I don't want to. I can actually still have my C#, files, or my bins or EXEs, and I can still scale them if I want. They also have the ability to do stateful microservices, which is very important for some of the things that we were doing. Our entire shopping carts, for example, are stateful, and they're scattered across a cluster of nodes with multiple partitions. And I think what that does is it eliminates the need for us to have an RDS or a database or Mongo or anything like that. It actually keeps the data on the machines and maintains multiple replicas. So we have a lot of stateful microservices that we use, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then the other thing was you can run literally any language. You can run Java, Python, Node.js, C#. I think those 4 are the languages that I program in. And so I was very happy that I could use any of those languages as I wanted. And also you can run this on any operating system. They actually have the ability to deploy your Azure Service Fabric onto AWS, for example. Or you can actually stand up 5 machines or 10 machines in your own data center, and you can install their Azure Service Fabric Cluster Manager, which is a software that allows you to orchestrate all of these. And you can deploy them on your machines, and you can literally stand up your own Service Fabric without having to use any third-party environment. And it will help you with things such as fault tolerance, backup management, will help you with orchestration. So there's a lot of cool things there. And finally, obviously, you can scale up to thousands of machines. Although I have not scaled them up to thousands of machines, I do see I can automatically scale up based on network utilization, memory footprints, or I can just go and pre-provision to say 10 machines if I want. So all of that is all possible. Again, in classic Microsoft style, you don't need to do anything using code, although I do prefer writing the manifests and the deployment scripts all by myself, but you can actually do all of this using existing tools that you have at your disposal. So here are some of the things that it allows you to focus on. So you can have, like I said, you can deploy this to other clouds. You can have your on-premise data centers if you want. You can obviously preferred approach is Azure. But you can also run this on your dev machine. I think what's great about this is I can simulate a 5-node cluster right on my dev machine, and I can test everything on there, and I can make sure that it runs as per the plans. And then I can go in and I can check that code in GitHub, just like you guys were talking about, verify all the manifests, make sure everything is good, and then use CI/CD to actually go ahead and do a deployment. Couple of other really cool things that we get out of the box is the health and monitoring. It also allows us to, it's got its own event model, but again, it's plug and play. You can swap it out with any logging provider. So for example, I use Elasticsearch, and all of my logs directly go on there, and I can now go and check my logs and make sure my cluster is doing exactly what it's supposed to. It also has its own unique programming models, which really kind of make things pretty nice if you're using their infrastructure. So for example, like I was talking, you can have stateful services, but you can have them as an actor model. So you can deploy small units of work, microservices for actors. So my cart service, for example, is an actor. So anytime someone adds a ticket to the cart, there is an instance of that actor for that specific cart, and that will contain the entire state and behavior for that entire checkout process. And that cart is literally like a grain of sand sitting in the sea of clusters that I have available. And using partition keys and IDs, I can actually locate that cart anywhere across the entire cluster. And there's another programming model they call as the reliable services model that allows you to, again, persist state across as many partitions as you want, but it gives you programming primitives now to manage that state. And the byproduct of these models is now I don't need to use like a Redis instance or a CDN, because the state is coupled on the boxes and it's replicated. So I almost get the benefits that I would get from a Redis caching or a CDN, but it's all right on the same infrastructure, and you can have as many replicas as you want. So that's some of the benefits that I have been able to get by using something like this. It's completely managed. I don't have to do a thing. I just deploy it using my IDE. I can roll back. I have all the benefits of gradual upgrade onto all the different machines. And it really just lets me focus on what I should currently be focusing on as a business, is building the amazing features that our customers want and not worry about these yet. Now, again, I don't know where the limitations are, because I have not dabbled with Kubernetes to see, or nor am I facing any issues right now with my deployments, but I do know that at some point I may outgrow this. And what Microsoft has recently done is they've created this new product called Azure Fabric Mesh, which is actually like serverless. And you can actually move all of your existing stuff onto that mesh, and then you have all the power of serverless. So I have combined Service Fabric and the Lambda functions, which is Azure functions, and which is the equivalent of Lambda, together to actually completely have the same kind of scale that a very large company would have, except it's done with like 3 developers, and only one of them works on the back end. So
it seems like cost was a huge driver for you, Anup?
That is correct. Yeah, the cost and just the fact that I don't have to learn something right now, when I'm in the growth phase of my company. Like if I were to make the investment and the budget right now to do something, I mean, we're looking north of $200,000, $300,000, I'm guessing. And I've had people that I've spoken with, and they're like, "Yeah, you're looking at least 2 to 3 months worth of, work there." But I could totally be wrong. All I'm saying is this just worked really well for me, and I don't see any issues with the cost, and I get all the benefits that I would otherwise get from Kubernetes.
Very good. I appreciate that, Anup. It seems like you're the lone voice in the wilderness, because I asked people to tell me if they're using Azure, and no one's using it.
Yeah, I know. And again, there's nothing, nothing wrong there. It's totally a preference thing. For me, this was a great option. And as you can see, here are all my microservices. You can see all of them. You can see them in partitions. The good thing about this is I have replicas. I can go to the primary node. I know where that is. I can see all the secondary nodes. All of my management is right here. So my backup and restore service is here. My manager DNS service, if you're using DNS, which I'm using, all your event store, your failover management, all of that is all in here. And whenever I do a deployment, as you can see, like I have multiple versions of my application. So, I'm on 107 right now, but if I ever mess something up, I can immediately spin up a new instance in real time, just like you would with a Docker container. Or I can just roll back to the earlier version. And I have my upgrade domains, in my cluster, like it tells me on the logs, it tells me if everything is healthy. I can look, whenever I'm doing an update, it will show me what my update looks like. Here's all my manifest information. Obviously, this is all a file in code that is all checked in, but I can see all of that information. It will tell me, what sort of traffic I'm looking at. Here's the upgrade domain, it will go in, it's divided into fault domains. So it really does a step-by-step upgrade. Here's my image store, I can look at all the files in here. So you can see all my microservices are all in here. And I can go and look at all of the sizes. And there's my manifest for everything. I can put all the port information, right now I'm on a 5-node cluster, obviously, but I can grow this to as many as I want. And all of my information, the configuration information is all in here. And I can also do my events in here. And then I also have.
I love it.
We see a lot of Azure customers at HashiCorp, and a big part is just the size of the company kind of ends up dictating a little bit who's in Azure and who's not. And the reason is that Microsoft gives these huge, enormous Azure credit bundles to folks who have existing Microsoft contracts and stuff like that. So,
right.
They're doing really well in enterprise, and it's primarily because they're already there.
Yes.
Right? And AWS was built on SMB and developers, right?
Yeah. And the other thing that we see is folks who are prohibited from doing business with Amazon, which is not an existing
that happens too
as well too. So
we see that too with people being prohibited from doing business with Microsoft and being prohibited from doing business with Google. So it's like,
Yep.
they're all controversial companies.
But I just wanted to comment. I worked for a very, very large company, and they were so embedded deep with Microsoft that when the engineering group was developing our application and stuff, we were likely going to go with AWS, but they pushed us over to Azure because of the credits.
Yep. Very common.
It's hard to resist not spending money.
That is
Well,
true.
when the IT department covers the check, so.
Exactly. Yep.
We have a startup that just got funded, and Microsoft gave them a full year's worth of unlimited credits. And it's crazy how
They're all doing stuff like this for what it's worth, right?
Yep.
So, and by the way, you can, like, if you want to do the vendor neutrality thing, don't really try to be vendor neutral, but just talk to them like you do, because it'll get them to throw more credits at you to get you your
That's
workload on their environment, which is what you should ultimately do, just because it's easier and faster and you get to market. But play them against each other to get those massive credits. We get a lot. AWS pays us a bunch to do like migrations. Like literally, they're just like, we want this workload, and they're threatening going to Azure because they're getting service credits. We will pay you, $1 million to move this massive workload up into AWS, and we'll give the customer like 6 months free, and like, it's awesome.
When do companies start needing managed services, Jonathan? And kind of Evan, for you, when do you see people going to Terraform Enterprise? Like, what are those thresholds for the company?
And I'd love to know that, because I don't know if I need it yet, but I want to know, if there is a point when I'm going to start needing that.
I'll go first real fast. I mean, I think that, so since we've kind of unlocked Terraform Cloud to be just a pay-as-you-go SaaS, that's allowed people to just like go in and experiment with it, so they can basically figure out like, oh, is this what I like? Is this like that took up a lot of last year. Previous to that, it was a whole sales cycle. Now you can just go try it out pretty easily. So that can be anybody. That can just be one developer who wants to just try it out as just an easy way to manage it. On the enterprise side, because of the way that the sales cycle works for HashiCorp specifically, we see a disproportionate amount of just very large, like Fortune 2000 companies, and that's just because of the way that the sales works in that way. So my answer is going to be colored in that way, unfortunately. So I can't give you a good like, oh yeah, like this is exactly, if you do this exact thing, then this is Terraform Enterprises for you, because we don't have exposure to give you that answer. It's been a different thing that's basically driven that. That being said, if you're probably the easiest one is like, do you use SaaS products? Do you allow other companies to store your data for you? If you're comfortable with that, you're probably comfortable with Terraform Cloud, and you can kind of go that direction. If you're not comfortable with that, if you're like, I have regulatory things, I have to have everything federated inside my own little bubble, then you get into sort of like, okay, Terraform Enterprise discussion. So
when managed services, the way I always tell people about this is, if you're adopting any cloud, right, and you're operating your workloads there are a set of things that you have to do, right? This is not negotiable. So security, you need to do security, right? You need to do kind of operations and continuous monitoring of the environment, incident response, backups, kind of making your production workload run. You need to do continuous improvement, so kind of the traditional DevOps stuff that you need to do. And you need to do cost optimization and governance, right? So all of those things you need to do. And the question is, which of those things does a company feel like they are really good, their core competency is at? And as a managed service provider, what we do is we do all of those things. And the question is not just bring it all to us. It's sort of like, which of these things is not your core competency? Which of these things is not a place where you feel it's worth investing? Give us that. We'll do it for you. We'll operate your workload. We'll help you with continuous improvement. We'll do cost optimization for you. Whatever it is that you don't want to do, right? To me, it's like, here's a set of things that need to get done. Look at your organization and decide, are we good at this? Do we have time for this? Is this the best use of our resources? Are we differentiating from our competitors because of this, right? If uptime is your core competency, and that's something that your market and your product cares about, by all means, have people on pager duty, right? And pay them handsomely to be on 24/7. If you don't, maybe you should let somebody else handle that for you, who can do it at scale, with, massive distributed teams and, great discounts on monitoring platforms, and do it really effectively and really well, and let you focus on other stuff. So to me, it's look at the world of those 5 things that you got to do, decide which of those things you don't want to be doing, right yourself, and either get somebody else to do it for you in a fully managed service or to participate with you in kind of a shared responsibility.